Hello and welcome to the third in the series of Peer 1 Hosting's webinars, designed to power the potential of businesses online. Today's webinar will take the form of a panel discussion looking at the key e-commerce issues facing brands that retail online. Joining me today is a panel of guests who between them have a wealth of experience in this sector, providing services to some of the biggest retailers across the globe. First up we have Dominic Monkhouse, the Managing Director of Peer 1 Hosting UK and Senior Vice President of Customer Experience. Dom launched the UK arm of Peer 1 Hosting, which currently provides e-commerce solutions to household names such as Waitrose, Debenhams and Ben Sherman, to name but a few. Secondly, we have Martin Newman, CEO of Practicology. Martin leads this multi-channel consultancy with a global footprint, providing actionable, profitable strategies for e-commerce businesses, having spent 25 years in multi-channel retailing himself. And last but certainly not least is Ahlstrom Stead, Technical Assurance Manager at Session Digital. Ahlstrom has worked closely with Peer 1 Hosting, helping the fashion retailer Misguided improve its e-commerce capabilities, leading his team at the award-winning Magento agency to support this customer as well as many others. So without much further ado, let's get this panel discussion underway and kick off with the first topic of discussion today, which is organisational design. Martin, maybe you want to field this first question. How do you feel the importance of organisational design is going to grow in the future?
That's a great question, Karen. I think that multi-channel retailers are seeing the value of driving customer behaviour and seeing customers buying through different channels. John Lewis, 64% of their customers are now omni-channel. House of Fraser are seeing more than a third of their customers ordering or choosing to click and collect, ordering on the website, picking up in the store. And therefore, it's become really important for retailers to join their channels together and to deliver a seamless experience. And to do that, they have to have an organisational structure that is joined up as well, and that means that they, instead of having a siloed e-commerce department, as has been the case for many years for lots of retailers, they have to have marketing, merchandising, range planning, customer service, all working in sync in order to make sure that that final experience that the customer has, the products, the choice of products that they have to buy, the marketing messages that they receive, the fulfillment of their goods, whether that's delivered to their house or picked up in a store, that experience has to be joined up. And I think the only way to really deliver that and maximise the opportunity is to have your organisational structure joined up as well.
Absolutely. And what do you think, Dom?
I was talking to mainly a store-based retailer the other week, and they were talking about the significant increase in click and collect.
Yes.
And that has an impact on store design, store layout, return per square foot, which then I think if you don't structure your business in a way that allows you to take that into account, then it could be challenging.
Absolutely. And Ahlstrom, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, it's about everyone within an organisation knowing what's going on, from technical service partners such as ourselves to hosting companies, so that it's communication and clarity of purpose. So marketing activities can be supported.
Yeah. And Martin, you touched on earlier there actually the increasingly multi-channel nature of shopping and the fact that customers, for people like John Lewis, are now shopping across multiple channels. And I think we all know the business benefits of that to a retailer, that multi-channel consumers will spend on average 80% more than those that just shop in store. But maybe could you elaborate a little bit more about what other benefits there might be for having a multi-channel
Sure. First of all, the reason why retailers have to have a multi-channel outlook is that's how their customers want to shop, as you've just outlined. And I think the important thing there is that there's been a seismic shift in customer behaviour in the last 15, 20 years. So if you go back to the 1990s, the choice of channels that customers had to shop from, they had the store business, they had possibly, in some industries, a call centre to contact, they might have had a catalogue, but there was no internet. And the internet's changed everything because that's proliferated the choice that consumers have. And customers don't see channels, they only see experiences. So if retailers aren't able to enable customers to buy through mobile, enable customers to have a similar experience using their tablet, enable customers to choose which channel and how their orders are fulfilled, then they're going to lose out because somebody else around the corner or somebody else online is only a click away. But I think it's more important than that, and I think it's not just about transacting, it's also about engagement. And I think retailers that are able to join their channels together and deliver the right type of experience then have the opportunity to also have what we call a single view of the customer. So if you're able to join your customer data together, you start to get a feel for how your customers really want to interact with you as a business.
Yeah.
You are then able to, dictate to some extent or modify the customer's behaviour by targeting them with the right messaging at the right time, giving them incentives to shop through different channels. And obviously, the key objective that every retailer has is to retain their customers.
Yes.
It's always more expensive to acquire customers than it is retain them, and retailers need to be working towards a lifetime value model. And the more you can join all of that up, the chances are the longer you're going to keep that customer's business, and the higher propensity they're going to have to buy through different channels.
Yeah, and Ahlstrom, do you maybe want to give your perspective? What are you hearing from your customers?
Just to absolutely agree with the points from my colleague here, but also the concept of brand advocacy. By giving customers an opportunity to engage with the brand where they wish, in the mediums that they're happy using, be that social media, mobile and second screen devices.
Sure.
But once you have a customer that's happy with the services you're providing, that brand advocacy is incredibly powerful and can drive massive upturn in revenue.
Yeah. Tom?
I am staggered if I think about going and buying from somewhere and they don't have a website, or if they have a website but they don't have e-commerce.
Yeah.
It just, from a consumer perspective, it just pushes you away from somebody you might have considered using, because it's not available. You're not available to shop at 8 o'clock in the evening, or or whenever I might prefer to be, browsing to solve a problem. And from a hosting perspective, or from our perspective, we see that whole engagement going past the e-commerce and into sort of customer experience. So our customers engaging with us, providing our ticketing systems. We've got to be multi-channel from a customer support perspective, and so it's the fact that e-commerce is going that way and retailers are going that way is driving all our business to be multi-channel, because it's changed consumer expectations. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on the phone, on the website, on a mobile device.
Yeah.
You just got to make everything available.
Absolutely. But one of the main problems, though, in integrating multi-channel is that many retailers, they still operate in silos. They have separate silo for e-commerce and one for in-store. So what do you think needs to be done to create a better flow between all these different departments?
Well, we touched on it a little bit with the sort of organisational structure, and that I guess if I just put a general business hat on, right? There's the flow of revenue and costs, right? So that the structural change inside an organisation either creates or destroys those types of silos, and they're some of the internal challenges that as e-commerce was this side business over here, and now it's become much more prominent, much bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, now it touches everything else, and you've got vested interests which are resist change.
Yeah.
And so there's some structural stuff, there's some budget stuff, and people have to have a desire as well.
Sure.
And Martin, how do you think maybe some of that change can be brought about? How can you change people's mindsets whenever it comes to integrating different channels?
There are still retailers out there who have store staff who see the web as a threat because they maybe don't have a consistent remuneration policy that says that the store staff are incentivised for all the orders that are placed online but picked up in store. So I think that's a great starting point to make sure that any commission schemes are aligned across the business, so that everybody's job is to make sure the customer buys irrespective of the channel, and that they have the choice of how to do that. But I think it's about putting the customer at the heart of everything you do, and I think if you do that, I think a lot of retailers pay lip service to that, and I think if you really put the customer at the heart of everything you do, at the heart and centre of your business, it becomes a lot easier to then think about how do I need to align my organisation in order to deliver that. Yeah. Because you wouldn't have a separate buying and merchandising team for the store business versus the web business, because you'd end up with inconsistency of choice. You wouldn't be taking advantage of the fact that you have different customers sometimes buying online or choosing to buy different products. So I think it's really important to put the customer at the heart and then think about how does that affect how you work as an organisation in order to deliver that experience. And that's not a bad way of thinking about it from the outset.
Mm-hmm. And Ahlstrom, how do you see things?
The retailers we're working with, we're seeing a definite transition whereby previously online was an investment area, and it was growing, and now it's grown that the online business is coming in store to bricks and mortar. But that's actually a difficult proposition, because with bricks and mortar stores there's a heavy investment in technology, especially around point of sale.
Yes.
We're seeing a big move to bring the website to be the point of sale in store as well as online to the customer. So in-store staff are engaging with the website to place the order on behalf of the customer.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting if you go into some stores where they've decided that it's so important that they put Wi-Fi in the store.
Definitely.
As opposed to, there's nobody around and you think, I wonder if they have this in stock. They might have, or maybe they just have just in time so they don't. But is it on their website? And then you say, oh, well, I'm in a shopping centre and I've got no Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to know. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go probably to a different store because I've come out to try and get this.
Yeah.
And somebody like John Lewis is good with they've got it in the store, and you can then either they've got devices or you can check yourself to see whether they've got it in stock.
Burberry is actually a really good example of somebody who does that very well. They have this customer one-to-one that they use. So when someone comes in store, and the store associate has a tablet where they can look up all that person's past buying history, not just in store but online as well. And I think that goes to what Martin was saying actually earlier about joining up all that data.
I think we call that. I think one of the buzzwords around the industry for that is probably clienteling.
Yeah.
Or even going a stage further and recognising when the customer comes in the store, checking the House of Fraser will check a customer in on their mobile.
Yeah.
We'll have that order history there, and then can start to engage on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
Debenhams have put, I think the other way of, one of the other big advantages is, you mentioned this about taking the website proposition into the store. Debenhams have an endless aisle.
Yeah.
House of Fraser creating that, and these are great opportunities to extend your range and your product catalogue when you're maybe limited by the shelf space available in the store, to offer a vastly increased range. And with the likes of Debenhams, where not all of their stores are the size of their Oxford Street store.
Yeah.
Some of them are considerably smaller footprints. Then they have the opportunity to offer a bigger catalogue, and they've taken over £100 million in incremental revenue in the last 12 months as a result of doing that.
Yeah. I think this might be a good point to talk about a seamless customer experience, especially personalisation, which is becoming more and more important. Ahlstrom, what about your customers? How are they personalising the experience for their shoppers?
A lot of our customers are very much focused on personalisation, but from a technology perspective, a lot of larger siloed e-commerce platforms, that's actually it's a real difficult proposition to implement.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of customers use strategic implementations to trial this the personalisation aspect, trial the second device aspect of e-commerce, and then I think that will then shift back into the larger platforms that they're using in kind of global commerce.
Yeah, absolutely. Martin?
It's hugely important, and I think that it has to start with data, and it has to start with joining that up. And I think that at the moment, a lot of retailers aren't either collecting data at the point of sale in the store, or if they are, it sits in a separate database to the web database. So they don't have that single view of the customer and of their behaviour. So it is often driven by technology, but it's also, what do you do with that information once you've got it? Yeah. And there are very few retailers, I think, in my opinion, too many retailers are so focused on acquiring customers and not enough on retaining them.
Yeah.
And I think, you don't see that many really effective loyalty programs out there. And I think that, price is a driver in certain sectors, but adding value, personalization, being able to deliver a real one-to-one customer-centric experience is hugely important. Yeah. And if you've got the data around what that customer likes and what they don't like and how they engage, that's a great start. But you need to really think about how you add value to that customer. You know, what else are you going to do to reward their loyalty and to ensure that they come back and continue to buy from you? Absolutely.
And Dom, how do you see the relationship between infrastructure and creating that seamless customer experience?
Well, I think it depends on. There's a whole platform discussion, and so in a sense, pure play retailers have a much easier time of it because typically they're newer, they've started from scratch. You look at some of the retailers that we work with, and they've got big investment in sort of legacy point of sale systems, and then layering something on top is really, really difficult. So from a website infrastructure, adding in sort of merchandising and personalization, we host a number of the sort of the SaaS players who do that. And so, it becomes a challenge for the website developers to assist the retailers in making that work. But it's the back end data. I see that failing all the time. And as a consumer, I'm not sure that I can think of anybody who does a particularly good job today of making personalised offers to me. Even those people that I willingly share as much information as they want from me, they still don't do a particularly good job.
I've got a good point to add to that, and I won't mention the brand. I've mentioned it a few times presenting over the last year or two, but there's a department store that I used to buy from quite regularly online, and they've never yet. I bought the same product for 18 months, skincare, which clearly doesn't show. It's done no good whatsoever, but I bought the same product. Thank you. I like it. It's obviously done no good, but anyway, I continued to buy from this brand to the point where I got fed up about the fact that they hadn't ever taken the effort to send me relevant communication.
Yeah.
To the point where, in fact, not that long ago, I had an email trying to sell me a women's work wardrobe. Now, the chances are I'm probably not a transvestite unless they know something I don't. So I'm unlikely to be transacting with them through that email. And I think, I do think that the retailers are lagging a bit behind. They've got the data, they know what customers are buying. There isn't really an excuse as to why they wouldn't make the effort to actually start to really send out relevant communication based on your behaviour. And if you don't do that, why would you expect somebody to continue to want to engage with you if you haven't made that effort to actually recognise them and what they like and what they don't like? Then you shouldn't expect to keep their business.
I think a great example recently of somebody who's done that quite well is Ted Baker, and they've just created this new website where it will look at your gender, all the different kind of lines and ranges that you're interested in, and then it will make recommendations based on that, and which is absolutely fantastic.
So tailoring the experience from the time you land on the
website.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'd like to look at the impact of website outages on retail brands, and Dom, I think that you have quite an interesting story.
Yeah, we had a customer, Misguided, who came to us, and they'd had some issues with their previous hosting company, and so we took the site live for them, and they started experiencing difficulties really on the Monday at about 11 o'clock as traffic volumes went up, and they by the end of the day, really, they were in a position where maybe £100,000 worth of credits had gone back to clients. Now, that wasn't all lost revenue, because some of that those clients might have done a repeat purchase. The orders weren't getting through from their front end to their back end. And so, what was our response? Well, we're not the software developer, we're the hoster. So is anything that we're doing in our infrastructure to blame? And what can we do to mitigate it, even if it isn't? So we threw more resources at the platform to try and make sure that the database slowdown was mitigated. We worked with Magento, we worked with a development partner, and ultimately it got to the point where it probably took 2 weeks, I think, to completely fix. We'd mitigated the problem particularly by about 3 days in, and for that 72-hour period, our guys, the 3 guys involved, slept in the office.
That's commitment for you.
Well, the thing is that we're more like a hospitality business than we're not like Dell or Apple. We don't make stuff. It's about the value that our clients see in the people. So database experts and hardware experts and Magento software experts. So those 3 guys were just in the office coordinating our contact with the customer, with Magento themselves, with our database tuning experts in the US, just to try and see what else could we do. And of course, you don't want to take the platform down, and so we're scheduling platform changes at 2 a.m. And so they've got to be there, and they want to be there to see, well, does it fix it? And it was 3 days before we got them to go home.
It's all very well and good having all these wonderful personalisation aspects to your site, but obviously functionality is number one, really. If the website's not working, if it goes down, then it doesn't matter what wonderful actions you can take on there. So, Dom, do you want to talk a little bit about how that affects a retail brand?
I think at one end there's a sort of a spectrum of availability, I think. And at one end you've got an outage for some or all of the site, and at the other end you've just got poor performance. And I think all the way what was it? If your page load speed is 8 seconds and you can cut it to 2, conversion on the site goes up sort of 75%. And so there are things like where we work with clients, I used to say that nobody ever said their site was too fast, but actually somebody did say to me the other day that they thought their site was too fast because they had historically, before they switched provider, they had run a sale and it had taken all day to sell their stock out, and they sold out in 3 hours in the morning. So they felt they'd have disappointed customers. I'm not. Anyway, I think that's the I don't think. I think it just gets, whether you're on a mobile or whether you're on, and that's harder to achieve the speeds that you would like. But as a consumer, you hit a website, if it doesn't refresh, if it isn't there, if it isn't perfect, if not all of it works, if the search has stopped working, if the shopping cart doesn't work, if the images aren't loading, so the whole thing might not be down, but just that experience gets broken, and you get frustrated. And if if it's the first time you've visited, well, you'll sort of bounce off and go somewhere else and not come back. So we know it's absolutely fundamental for our clients to just give them, great uptime and great performance.
Absolutely. What about from your side of things, Ahlstrom?
I mean, as a delivery partner, it's key for us in releasing new versions of software that there's zero downtime, that the customer journey isn't affected, because there's a measurable financial impact of lost revenue, and then there's an intangible impact of brand loyalty. And how many customers did you lose that will never return?
Yeah.
But even just the measurable numbers for some of our clients, can be tens of thousands of pounds of lost revenue in minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ability to scale while remaining stable is very important as well during peak periods, especially with Christmas coming up. I would imagine there's going to be, or if Kate Middleton appears in a dress somewhere, I'm sure it'll crash a site somewhere, or gives birth. Yeah, or exactly.
So we had to scale. We had to scale some sites.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
So we had to scale some sites for that. And Christmas, obviously, lots of our customers will now be in. They'll have done their scaling and they'll be in lockdown through probably till the end of January. Our travel customers will have a peak in January, and our dating sites will have several peaks. One probably being in February, but they'll have another one over Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely key to be in a position where we can take those sites up in terms of their capacity and then down seamlessly to minimise the expense of our clients, really, to try and get the cost in line with their revenue profile.
Absolutely. And just to change tack a wee bit and to talk about the increasingly international aspect of e-commerce. Martin?
It's high on their agendas. I don't think there's anyone I know that hasn't already started internationalising or doesn't have it very much on their roadmap. I think it's an interesting thing, because I do think that there's also a threat from internationalisation. I think it's a great opportunity, but when we engage with our clients, we're telling them beware, because a lot of international retailers from other countries and other markets see the UK as a very attractive proposition. Yeah. So we're dealing with clients in Australia who are looking at the UK and Europe and other markets. The Chinese are now coming on, online in a very big way. A couple of years' time, China will be the biggest global market, e-commerce wise, that will have overtaken the States. So I think it's a great opportunity, but it's also a threat. And I think the key challenge is about thinking through, what level of localization are you going to execute to really be effective. And if I look at what a lot of retailers are doing, there's a number of strategies, from doing nothing and maybe just turning on the buy button and letting customers, buy from you, to someone like Clark's, who have localized the whole proposition, local language, local service. I think they tailor the product, local marketing, and they've got people on the ground answering the phone in the local language. And I think if you want to really be successful, I think you kind of need to make that effort, because if you're French or German, why would you buy from an English language site selling to you in pounds sterling and customer service that was in London or wherever,
Absolutely. Alistair, you've helped your client Misguided internationalise. How do you see international expansion in retail?
Sure. So they're a pure play online retailer, and they've moved from a UK centric to Australia and to the US, and also to mainland Europe. And the big transition for them is, obviously, although they're fulfilling all of their business through a single platform and a single warehousing solution in the UK, is just the simple things like time zone, changing the way they work in the office, the way they're merchandising their site. There's no concept of a quiet period on the website anymore. So that affects, from a technical perspective, deployment of new functionality. It affects the way they extract data out of the platform, and it affects the hosting as well.
And on the subject of hosting, do you want to jump in there, Tom?
Well, yes. I mean, one of the things that we do with a number of our clients is we've either deployed them in the UK or we've deployed them in North America, depending on the location of their customer base they're trying to target. Some of our customers we've deployed them in multiple locations. We might have added CDN or data center caching technology to speed up page load times. But we've also it's interesting just thinking about internationalizing, particularly in Europe. There are some when I go to conferences and listen to other people speak, different credit card, different processing.
Yeah.
Even just in Germany, that it tends to be around. It's on invoice rather than credit.
Bank transfers.
I know one of the retailers stood up and they said we thought it'd be absolutely fantastic. So we went into France and Germany. Our complexity went up 300% and our revenue went up 10%. And so straight away you're feeling and he said, look, he said for 18 months you probably are allowed to get away with it not being quite right because if you're bringing something unique to a market.
Sure.
But at that point you've got to be as good as the best local retailer. Otherwise people, as you say, why would you buy from buy from a US website in the UK if there was a local supplier who could do it better,
It's all too easy to make assumptions that simple things like payment and shipping work the same everywhere, and they don't.
I think I agree with you, but I think one of the challenges is that, if you're going into somewhere like Holland and you don't have open invoice and you don't let people pay, or in Germany, cash on delivery, or in Germany you don't let people pay by bank transfer or direct debit, which I think they call ELV. Then one of the challenges is you're going to limit the demand, and therefore it becomes difficult for the business because you then have the business saying, well, actually, it's not working that well for us over there. Well, it's not working that well because you haven't actually really localized the proposition. So it's hard to gauge the level of demand until you really do it properly.
Absolutely.
I think there's certain things you can fail fast on. There's certain things you have to get right from the start.
We've got a client who is now doing some hosting in the US. Historically, they'd have served that out from the UK. And they said some of their clients in West Coast had page load speeds of about a minute. And so you can imagine going onto the site, click, go make a cup of tea, come back, click. And they said they couldn't, but they hadn't realised how bad it was.
Yeah.
They just had orders coming through. And then when they eventually got to the point where they said, well, we better check to see what what our global page load speeds are. They said, how could anybody be bothered to do that? But obviously they had people who...
That was like 1995.
on wet string and dial-up, So, you think speed and ubiquity, the internet, and yet, some of these, some people have got global customer bases and they're not able to, their sites aren't able to reach them in a way.
We're in a task-rich, time-poor environment. We're all multitasking, multi-screening, and people just don't have the threshold. And if it takes more than, as you say, 1 or 2 seconds, that's it. Conversions down the tubes.
Mm-hmm. And what about servicing these international customers in terms of delivery and returns as well? I mean, that's becoming incredibly complex for online retailers.
Well, I think you have to get the proposition right. And I think, again, if you want to look at a case study, it's hard to argue with someone like ASOS. I mean, ASOS were the first brand that I'm aware of that did free global delivery, and that was a strategic play. They decided they were prepared to give up some margin to gain market share, and it worked for them because obviously now about 70-80% of their growth is through international, and they're going to be in the next 18 months, maybe 2 years, they're going to be £1 billion plus business. And I know the Australian market particularly well because we have an office there. And they are shipping 1.5 jumbo jets worth of products to Australia every single week. So they're taking about £1.25 million worth of revenue from that one market every single week.
I was just thinking, we were talking earlier about internal systems and organisational structure. So one of the retailers that I know ships product from China to Southampton. It goes from Southampton then by lorry to their service centre. Then it gets packaged up for the Asian market, so it goes in that lorry back again onto another ship out there, and you just think, surely you'd want to just put it in plastic bags out there somewhere because that's 3 months probably.
It's incredible, isn't it?
And it's a system thing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So one of the big topics as well whenever it comes to e-commerce that we've touched on slightly but haven't really delved into properly yet is mobile, which is just increasing day by day, year by year, and now we have retailers who are actually optimizing for mobile first rather than just for PCs and laptops. I think the IMRG has said that all online growth now comes from mobile. So what do the panel think about how do retailers optimise for mobile commerce?
Well, I think we'd have had a different conversation maybe 2 years ago, and I think tablets has made a massive difference, you know, because I assume you're saying mobile is tablet and phone.
I think it's both, any mobile device,
and I think, you know, it sort of stuttered on mobile because people tended not to optimize. Now you've got a platform which, you know, browsing, high definition photographs, you know, and certainly one of the Debenhams who we do some hosting for, you know, the percentage of sales that they got through their tablet site versus their traditional store site, they were just amazed by how quickly you know, visitors transitioned across. And now just the penetration, the depth of penetration of tablets in the marketplace is just huge.
That's true. I think it's actually exceeding the sales of laptops and PCs now.
Yeah, and it's just the ease. You don't have to go somewhere in the house and log onto a computer. It's just
it's just
you know, we're using our phones on the go. I mean, we do everything on our phones. We do our social networking. We communicate with the work through voice, through email. We're on, you know, we're surfing, we're shopping, we're listening to our music. So we're living our lives through our mobile devices. And you know, that behavioural change obviously has driven the requirement for retailers to think not only strategically but tactically about how to serve up, you know, the most relevant propositions. So from a strategic point of view, thinking through, you know, clienteling, you know, recognising customers when they walk in the store, recognising that customers are probably going to do you know, they're probably going to do some price comparison when they're in the store. You know, I think you need to embrace that and find out what you can do in store to take advantage of that rather than seeing it as a threat, which is why retailers have been implementing Wi-Fi. From a more, let's say from an experience perspective, serving up responsive design sites, and maybe that's something we want to have a quick chat about.
Sure, I mean, our normal approach is mobile first. When the client has the opportunity to go through a website revision, then we approach that with a mobile first design concept, because that's the most opportune time to do that. With legacy systems, maybe there's kind of some alternate options, be they third-party services that can mobile optimize a site without development. But emerging markets are kind of forcing the industry to go that way. You know, emerging markets are skipping laptops, they're skipping desktop, going straight to mobile, and that's where a lot of our clients' growth will come from.
So do you think there's an argument then, Ahlstrom, to say that if a retailer doesn't already have an online presence, that it should be mobile that they do first before an e-commerce site?
Absolutely.
If you were a small retailer, you know, if you had a couple of stores in a localized area, for example, you know, would you even bother with a desktop site? Because, you know, your customers are likely to be finding you and looking for you through their smartphone as they're on the move, and therefore, you know, having a desktop site is probably not even necessary.
And also, I think though, if you've got a responsive design site, then you're only building one site, rolling out one infrastructure. You know, there's some CMS stuff underneath that decides which content gets pushed to which screen size, but you know, you're only having to do it once, and that's you say about the legacy systems. They're the people who are still then having to build a mobile specific alternative, because their legacy system doesn't deliver responsive.
But I think we'll also see, from my perspective, I think we'll also see a change in buying behaviour and buying practices using different technology that opens up. So being able to identify the customer based on their true mobile device rather than username and password, and payment being different rather than the traditional bank model as well.
So Martin, I'd just like to talk about building a brand experience online. How do retailers go about doing that? How do they really create engaged customers?
Great question, Karen. The brand that always springs to mind when I think about, you know, true and deep, meaningful customer engagement is actually a pure play business from America that sells vintage women's wear called ModCloth. And started by a young lady who's still only, I think, about 28, and when she was 17, it's now a $100 million plus business. And what they do fantastically well is they've built a really great community, and they involve their community in the product development process. So rather than them dictating all the time, ModCloth dictating to the customer, here's our range, this is what we have to sell, they actually put products onto the site, they put designs onto the site and say to the customer, vote for these. What do you think about these? How would you change them? What would you do differently? And as a result, the customer is involved in the product development process. And the styles that they put through this process convert at 2.5 times those that just go onto the site for general sale. And I just think it's a fantastic example of really leveraging a customer base, involving them in your business, and seeing the commercial benefit from it, but in a really nice way, you know, without the customers feeling as if they've been used, but they're delighted to give their input.
Absolutely. So. What about you, Ahlstrom? How do you see creating an online brand experience for your customers?
We have a number of clients that are trying to take the store experience online, and that's not just finding products and selling them and shipping them. It's also personalization of products. Yeah. So we have one client in particular that does personalized stationery, personalized leather goods, and they have an amazing in-store experience. It's really, really well thought through, and they've transferred that to online. And then the repeat orders of that personalised stationery year on year as presents is really paying dividends for them.
I think that there's been, as Martin was saying, there's been quite a lot of sort of sourcing from your customers to find out what kind of ranges you should be providing for them, and even I think it was Homebase who have said not only will customers be able to sort of say what they'll sell, but also what they'd pay for it, what price they would pay, which is quite an interesting development.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, and I suppose there are, as you go through a store, often somebody will say to you, "Is there something?" Maybe it is Homebase who they say, "Is there something you would have liked to have purchased today, but we didn't have in stock?"
Yeah.
And so that's that's a good way of again, it comes back to data, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Using your customers who are happy to share data with you and using that to do something.
Absolutely.
I think there's also, maybe not at an engagement level, I'll just throw this one in, but at a more practical level, talking about taking the store experience and delivering it online. The challenge is that you're in a virtual environment where you don't have store staff.
Yeah.
So just getting the basics and the fundamentals right can make a big difference. You're going in to buy a shirt, you want to provide the same experience as a customer would have walking into a store. Yep. Ted Baker would like to think that their sales staff would approach me and ask me, what was I looking for? I'd say a shirt. They'd walk me to the shirt department. They'd ask me if it was a particular style, colour, price, material. You need to deliver the same experience online.
And quite a few people do now have live chat and virtual fitting rooms as well, where you can try on a shirt virtually before you buy it.
Yep,
I do think that in a former life I was a supplier to Argos, and from our perspective as a supplier to Argos, one of the things that was really good is that obviously somebody would go into store and look up something, so you knew they'd looked something up. We had to get 90% in stock in store all the time. And I'm always amazed when I go on a website to buy something, say like a shirt, and it doesn't say it hasn't asked me to log in and say what size I am, and then show me the shirts that they have in that size. You can spend hours and go not in stock, not in stock, not in stock. And you think, why haven't they just asked me and just displayed the stuff that they've got, or captured in some way the fact that I would have bought that shirt, or at least I'd browsed for that shirt. So there's a whole load of information that they're missing around what could they have sold to me, and or making it easier for me to choose one of the ones that they do have. So, or when somebody has a sale, and they send me information saying there's a sale, please check, and they've already sold out of everything in my size. Why? So why email me? Or one of there's or frankly, we were talking about spikes. The number of times a web I'll get an email saying there's a sale, and I'll click on it, and the site is no longer responding because they've sent out 300,000 emails or whatever it is at 9 o'clock in the morning, and everybody clicks at the same time. Now, some of those brands there, I won't name them, but I have actually rung them up and told them that I like them.
I think we should name and shame.
That's another area where social media can be incredibly powerful and destructive. So if you've got a brand with a loyal following, you have millions of followers, and you tweet at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning that we have 40% off in store today. Yeah. By lunchtime, your hosting company and your technical partner is likely having a bad day.
Yeah.
I have had, just one other thing around hosting is that we did have a customer who, going into Christmas, needed the scale. We were talking to them, their technical partner was talking to them about the fact that their infrastructure wasn't where it needed to be. They ran an ad campaign, TV ad campaign, and they didn't have enough capacity. So that internally, the team was saying we need it, and their internal approval process was slow. The ad campaign ran, the site fell over. We were able, the guy rang me at home at night at 8 o'clock, and we built it overnight, and 9 o'clock in the morning, the ad campaign ran again, and their site stayed up. And he rang me back the next day, and he said, thanks for that, you saved my job.
Dom to the rescue.
But it's just, it's that sort of, you know, we have to be available because, you know, you don't know when, you know, disaster strikes.
Yeah. I mean, hosting and technology partner, it's largely a commodity part of the industry now. Traditionally, people would have run their own infrastructure, their own hosting, and they'd have an internal IT structure. That generally doesn't happen with certainly the kind of the mid-sector of the industry. I think it's really key to have partners that are invested in the project and the product. From our perspective, when our relationship with Peer 1, we have a number of channels to actually speak to people when we need access to technical support, be that Skype, rather than just an email or a ticketing system.
Okay guys, thank you very much for joining us today. That's just about all we have time for today. We've covered off an array of topics, which we hope you found interesting. If there is anything discussed today that has given you food for thought or has raised an issue which you feel your business is unprepared for, then please get in touch via the details to follow. I'd like to thank our panel members, Dom Monkhouse, Martin Newman and Alistair Stead. If you liked what you saw today, then please look out for the next Peer 1 hosting webinar series.